Good evening and welcome to another video in the Artfull Coder series on PHP. So in our previous videos we talked about variables and classes and data types, etc. We looked at object-orientated classes, and tonight we're going to spend a variation of that on interfaces. I'm just going to create a new folder. So this is our solution interfaces that we set up, and I don't want to do it there, so I'm just going to delete that. Keep forgetting you have to do that, so let's click on Kev site and do that. That's it, interfaces. And let's say we have an interface called car. We want to start it with icar.php. Now, it's always good coding convention to start interfaces with an I, which is what we've done. So we'll build our interface, start off with, and then we'll do some examples. So what is an interface? It's a contract, like saying, well, if I use this interface, it says that any classes that implement it or objects must also include this functionality. It's good for dependency injection and things like that as well. So then you can dependency inject your objects so your classes become loosely coupled. So that's, you hear this concept of coupling, loosely coupled, and interfaces are later do that. So let's say interface car. We want to say, okay, let's look back at a car. So tell you what, let's extend this. Let's go in and say that icar public function beep horn. Let's have a look. It seems to go line 2. Okay, it's not liking that. So public. Why is it not liking interface? Public interface icar. Oh, you don't declare it. You don't have. That's the other thing. You don't have access, like access modifiers. Forgot now on that. Again, allows that. So we've got our interface there. So what we're going to do is we'll create a new file in here as well. In go to Kev site and create a new file. I don't want to hit Control Z. I want to go up here and create a new file. Let's just do new file. Interfaces. Okay. So what we're going to do, come down here, include once. And the thing we're going to include is classes slash car dot php. So do a couple of includes there, and then we're going to say include once. No, this isn't going to work. So what we'll do is, yeah, we'll need to do this as well. So we say interfaces slash icar.php. So what this is going to do is bring in our class and our interface. Now we've got nothing to link them up at the moment. So what we're going to do is, this is our car class, and we've got a method in here called beep horn. What is it? We don't know at the moment. So what we're going to do is we'll go back to a car, and I'll always put comments in. Line below changed. Added in by car interface. Okay, so implement car. So if I do file and save, now that's implement our interface iCar. Now in scripting, it won't cause an error. But what we're going to do is we'll create an object of a car. Let's go here. Let's just say we're going to create a Ford Mustang. And get interface is car one. So let's see what happens if we go to our kev site and run this. .kev site and interfaces. Let's do faces. Okay, it's not found it, and you know why this is, because in here it's sequence events. So let's just move these about. Remember, anything that you're including pre, that needs to be above it. So then if I do that now, yeah, that is not declared. So remember, your sequence has to be in the right way around. And quite rightly now, it's now saying that there's no beep horn in there. So what we need to do is go into car, and we're going to create a new method called public function beep horn. And all we're going to do is do echo I have beeped my horn. Straightforward. And what should happen now, there you go. So you have to, if you're implementing interface, up here we've got iCar, and that's got a function in there. So the good thing about that is we could then dependency inject that, but as long as it has that interface method. And this is handy for mock objects when you're doing unit tests, etc., and stuff like that. So we've got our car. Let's just see what happens if we run that. So let's do $car1 beep horn. Let's see what we get. There you go. So we've now had our method there, and the good thing about this is as long as it involves the interface, as long as you implement all the methods, for example here, if I then said had another function drive, that will now cause an error because within our class we've not declared the method drive. And you can go on and on with this. You can honestly go on and on with this, so try not to worry too much. But and then you can also set the return type, which could be void. For example, this is typing in PHP. So then if I was to go back in here and say, copy that for a second, drop it down, and come up here, and I can say here, I am driving. And the return type is void. We want to say that we don't want a return type. And now in theory, there you go. This is what we call typecasting. So what you need to remember about typecasting is that you do it in methods. So in C# you do something like, it would just be something like this, void, public void drive, but PHP doesn't work like that. And then also you can pass parameters in. So for example up here, I could then say string, do another string, and then do that. There you go. So I've just used typecasting or named types. I've used name types, which is string and string. Now what you can't do is, yes, you can do stuff like this. So string like that, and what should happen is that shouldn't complain. There you go. So this is just setting types of objects, but the thing you can't do is with this. So think of this as a variant. So what I mean by that, you can't come down here and say, well, I want that to be a type of car, because effectively PHP doesn't do left-hand setups in the same ways. You can't do that. Doesn't like it. If I try to run that now, I get an error, a runtime error. There you go. Doesn't work like that. So that works. And if I then say, well, we've got that, it's implemented it, and what does it do? Let's just say I want to do car 1 1 / that. If I call that now, I beat my home, I am driving. So again, we're showing that use of interfaces in there. But you might be saying, well, we've not really done any sort of dependency injection to say, well, can we pass an object of a type? Yes, you can. So for example, let's have a look at let's extend our cars class. As well as passing make and modeling, we also want to pass a different class in. So what I'm going to do is create a new class, logger.php. And we're just going to have this in here. And yeah, that's logger. So let's do PHP. Come down to here. And we'll say class logger. And it's going to have public. That's all we're going to have. We'll just go public log. And we'll say, not that, function log. And it's going to be string message. Okay. It's not liking that book class. And it would help. Why isn't it like class logger? I've got to remember to put the dollar symbols in there. There you go. Let's just create a new interface as well called new file. I logger.php. Okay. So then what we need to do is, you might want to use different ways to do this. So we'll just put this up here. So include wants. Let's do interfaces /I logger. Okay. And then include, this is going off sequence again, so we want up here first, include wants classes /logger.php. And it's always good to check your code, tweaks you do. Again, that's not broke anything. So let's have a look at our iLogger. So all our interface is going to do is have a function called log message. If we go to here, PHP, and do interface iLogger, all that's going to have is that. He says, yep, that's right. And then what we're going to do is go to our logger and put implement that. We should have that. Okay, good. So how do we use that in practice? So what we need to do, let's create a new cars constructor, or we'll pass it in. So then within here is, what we're going to have is we'll do KS 25th.04.25. I'll say line below added private I logger dollar logger. There you go. Do that, and then within the constructor, I'm going to say down here, yes, 25th.04.25 below. You could put a more descriptive comment in. At the end of this, we're going to pass in I logger, and it's just going to be called. Is that right? Okay. And then what we're going to say down here is dollar, say comments case 25th.04.25 line below added, and say dollar this logger equals dollar logger. So that is dependency injection. Okay, yeah, that's me, because what's happened is you try to construct a car in this file and the constructor's wrong. So let's just see if this will let us do this. I'm hoping this will work. It may not do though. Let's see. May not be able to have the same method in there. Yeah, you can't call the same. Okay, you can only have one constructor in PHP. In other languages, you can have multiple, but in PHP, you can't. So let's go back to our file. So what we're going to do up here is we're going to say logger equals new logger. Doesn't do anything, just does that. So that is just that. And because we're using dependency injection, then we're going to pass this in on the line here. And it even gives us, hopefully, is it going to do it? That's no IntelliSense. But now that should actually run. There you go. So dependency injection is in action. So we know that we're passing through an interface, not a class, but an interface which is a simple method. This allows us to add functionality without worrying about the implementation detail. So an interface doesn't contain the implementation detail. What I mean by this is the logic, like it doesn't, you wouldn't just do this and then say, put a load of logic in. It doesn't work like that. Interfaces, they're just one line function call, listings and attributes of what the car uses. So how would we then use the logger? Well, let's just say we've done our drive. So let's say dollar this dash logger log, and this is going to be car is driving successfully. And what is this going to do? So let's just, this should work. Nothing. Because the method in the logger class is doing absolutely nothing. And again, you could just echo this out or call it, this could go to a database. You could inject a database connection in a class in there, data access layer, and info. And we're just going to do this. So remember the concatenation is this, so error message. Do that. There you go. So you can see with interfaces, we've got our method there. We've got the implementation details, so all of this could be mocked. Now there's nothing to stop me. And what do I mean by that? Well, what happens if we had another class called DB logger? Okay, we'll just call it DB logger, and we'll go up here, we'll just borrow this, And we'll drop that in there and call this dblogger. And what I'm about to illustrate is we've got a class up here, so let's just do PHP and do class dblogger implements. Okay, great. So it may just have the same method as this, but it may also, it will still implement that. But we might also have a property on here called private string, and we'll say $error code. If it's a private, try and get in the hand of using underscores. So let's do here error code equals that. No problems. But what it means is, in terms of dependency injection, this contains the implementation detail, but all we're passing to the car is an interface. So as long as dblogger has the same method, we can easily swap it out. And what do I mean by that? So let's do this. And let's say equals new dblogger. And then if we swap logger out with dblogger, this should still work. There you go. Because we've just swapped out the implementation from the non-implementation, meaning that we've passed, as long as they both use the same interface, it will work. So that's how it is. And you can have lots of these. You can do lots of interfaces, but it's really down to you. For example, let's just put, to show that we're actually getting that different. If I refresh our page now, there you go. So this has been a look at interfaces in PHP with dependency injection. So that means you're injecting something that has the same contract as another object of a class as something else, mean that you can do mock objects, you can pass them in to just test functionality, and it keeps them loosely coupled, because this up here, this interface is, well, it's a logger. I don't care about the implementation detail. I am just going to say, well, I'm calling whatever associated. And I hope you've really enjoyed this video, and I thank you so much for watching, and please keep tuned for further future videos, more on PHP from the Artful Coder. Thank you very much. Cheers.